Hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Dr. Ravi's Academy. In today's class, we will be learning how to solve a problem on resultants, engineering mechanics subject, and how to determine the resultant of coplanar concurrent forces. Let us understand what is meant by coplanar concurrent forces. Coplanar, all the forces are lying in a single plane. Concurrent, all the forces are meeting at a point, and you want to calculate the resultant of this particular system of forces. And let us look at the problem. A rigid body is subjected to four forces. Let us say that in first quadrant you have 300 newtons, in second quadrant 224 newtons, and in third quadrant again 200 newtons, in fourth quadrant it is 390 newtons. So you have four forces, all are meeting at a point origin, that is O, on the rigid body. Now, so you want to determine the resultant of these four forces, and in order to determine these two forces, the process you are going to adopt is you are going to divide each force. This 300 Newton force you are resoluting into two rectangular components. Likewise, four forces you are dividing into 8 components altogether, and then you are finding out the sum of all the forces along the x direction, that is sigma of x, and the sum of all the forces along the y direction, that means you are doing composition of the forces, and finally sigma fx as well as sigma fy, you are finding out a single force. That's what is the resultant of a given system of the forces. Now, in order to do that, let us first of all let us see that you have here this slope is given. So you want to calculate this angle. So this angle is tan inverse of, it is 1 by 2. So this angle is 26.6 degrees. And let us look at this, the fourth quadrant force also, it is given angle. It is opposite is 12 and adjacent is 5, 12 by 5. This angle gives you, it is a tan inverse of, it is 12 by 5, it is 67.4 degrees. The very first step of the problem is, whenever you come across with the slopes, calculate the angles, preferably with the x-axis. After this, let us see, you want to resolute each force into two rectangular components. Now, what you are doing, observe carefully. I am identifying a point on the force, and this size diagonal, let us construct a rectangle. And my intention is this angle, as you know, it is 30 degrees, and this component, x component of this is 300 cos 30, because the angle is include angle. The other component will be 300 sin 30, and both are pointing positive direction and positive direction. The force is in first quadrant. Likewise, let us again draw a rectangle to represent the rectangular components. Now, this force is 224. It becomes, this is with x-axis, and the angle is, it is sine component, sine of angle 26.6 degrees, and the x component, this component, I am calling it as it is 224 cos 26.6, and this particular force identify a point, and this as diagonal divide into two rectangular components. One is along the x direction, this is 200, it is angle is 60 degrees cos 60, and the component downwards, it is 200, it is sin 60. And lastly, about this also, let us construct a rectangle. You want to divide into rectangular components, and your x component, this angle is 67.4, your component is 390, it is cos 67.4 is x component, and this y component is 390, It is sine 67.4 degrees. So let us observe carefully. What you have done is the given forces are 4 that you have divided into two rectangular components. Each force you have divided into two rectangular components, so that now it has become totally 8 forces. Now let us write down sum of all the forces along the x direction with a notation that the force is pointing toward the x direction are positive and x prime direction are negative. Similarly, a force is pointing in the y direction or positive and pointing in y prime direction or negative. So with this sign convention, let us write down sigma fx, sum of all the forces along the x direction. So according to this, it is the first quadrant force is plus sign, it is 300 cos 30, and in second quadrant force, observe carefully, second quadrant it is pointing in the x prime direction, so it becomes minus 224, it is cos 26.6, and the third quadrant force, that is also x component is pointing in the x prime direction, so that is also, it becomes minus, it is 200 cos 60, and lastly the force in fourth quadrant, that is the x component is pointing in the x direction, that becomes plus, it is 390 cos 67.4. so let us calculate using your scientific calculator. This value you are going to get, it is 109.4 newtons. Your sigma fx is 109.4. let us call this is equation 1. Now you write down sum of the forces along the y direction, that is sigma Fy is equals to, here your first force component, it is pointing in the y direction, that is positive, so it is 300 sine 30 is positive, and the force in the second quadrant also pointing in the y direction, that is also positive, it is 224 sine 26.6, that is also positive, and the third quadrant force which is pointing in x prime direction, y prime direction, that is minus, so it is minus 200 sine 60, and in fourth quadrant force, the y component also it is pointing in the direction of y prime, that is also minus, so that is 390, it is sine 67.4 degrees. So let us calculate sum of all this, algebraic sum of all this. You are going to get, it is minus 283 newtons. Your sigma Fy is minus 283 newtons. Here, this is equation 2. Represent your sigma Fx is 109.4, which is positive. So it is in the positive direction of, this is your sigma Fx, that is 109.4 newtons, and sigma Fy is negative, it is downwards, so sigma Fy, the value is 283. Already you have taken care of sign convention, that is pointing downwards, need not put again minus. So let us form a parallelogram, and this is what is your resultant, and this is theta. So R is equals to, the resultant force R is equals to, it is sigma Fx square plus sigma Fy square under root. So this gives you, so it is 109.4 whole square, 109.4 whole square plus 283 whole square under root, and this gives you the value of 303.4 newtons. Your R value, the resultant is 303.4 newtons, and you want to calculate theta. So theta value, as you know, theta is equals to opposite side, that is sigma Fy. It is a tan inverse of, you are writing tan angle, and sigma Fy opposite and adjacent sigma Fx. So this value you will be getting it as 68.9 degrees. The inclination of the resultant with horizontal is 68.9 degrees. I hope you understood this particular problem. Let us practice it and keep watching for more videos in my channel. Thank you.